system is also not only consistent of your skin, but it also has areas of it which are hair, nails, sweat glands, and oil glands, otherwise known as sebaceous glands. So we're going to talk about everything in the system. All right, the structure of the skin. Basically, it's two distinct regions. The superficial region is the epidermis. It consists of basically epithelial tissue, which we talked about in the tissue chapter. And we know that the epithelial tissue has no blood supply. It's avascular. It gets its blood supply from the dermis, which is underneath the epidermis. And the epidermis gets its blood supply from the dermis. The dermis is basically connective tissue. Underneath the dermis is subcutaneous tissue. We also call it the hypodermis. And this is a layer of basically fat, is what it basically is. And the structure of fat in the hypodermis absorbs shock and insulates. And it also anchors the skin to muscles. And you're probably going to see this in your lab. This is the skin structure itself. As you can see, here is the epidermis. Multiple layers, I might add, which we will talk about. And then you have the dermis. And we'll talk about the structures that are in the dermis also. So, what cells make up the epidermis? Well, the epidermis is mostly keratinized, stratified, squamous epithelium. I think I asked this question on exam number 1. It is stratified squamous epithelium that has a protein on it, and that protein is called keratin. And there are 4 cell types in the epidermis. The most abundant cell type in the epidermis is the keratinocytes, and these produce the protein keratin. It's a protein that gives the skin protection. It coats the skin. It's connected tightly by desmosomes, and it is the major cell type of the epidermis. And you lose millions of these cells every day. The second type of cell is called melanocytes. Melanocytes are spider-shaped cells in the deep epidermis, and they produce the pigment melanin. Melanin is what gives your skin its color. Not only does it give the skin its color, it protects the skin from UV damage, ultraviolet damage. The third cell is called Langerhans cells. And these are star-shaped macrophages that act as immune system activators in the epidermis. The fourth type of cell are touch receptors, and those touch receptors are known as Merkel cells. So you have 4 types of cells: keratinocytes, the most abundant, melanocytes, Langerhans cells, and Merkel cells. And I certainly would know those cells because I want to ask you questions on exam number 2. Okay. The epidermis is stratified squamous epithelium. That means it has more than 2 layers. Basically, in the epidermis is made up of either 4 or 5 distinct areas. The majority of skin is known as thin skin, and it contains only 4 layers. On your hands and feet, which are the high abrasion areas, there is a 5th layer that is known as thick skin. The 5 layers of the skin are stratum basale, stratum spinosum, stratum granulosum, stratum lucidum, and stratum corneum. I want you to know that majority of skin has 4 layers, but in thick skin, there is a 5th layer, and that 5th layer is stratum lucidum. And you know I'm going to ask you that question on exam number 2. Stratum basale, the basal area. The basal area is the most active area. It is the base. It is where all the cells are born. It is also known as stratum germinativum, which means that the cells germinate in the basal layer. Okay, so all the cells that are made up of the 5 layers of epidermis come from the basal layer. Stratum spinosum, we're going from base all the way up to the top, okay? So we're going from inside to outside, all right? So the stratum spinosum is the 2nd layer, and the 2nd layer is known as the prickly layer. It's got prickle cells in it because the keratinocytes in this area are spiked, and it allows the cells in the area to resist tension and pulling. Okay, so that's the stratum spinosum. The stratum granulosum, or the granular layer, is where the keratinocytes begin to accumulate and make the protein keratin. So this is a very important layer. This is the protein that protects your skin. The 4th layer, and only in thick skin, is the stratum lucidum. The word lucidum in Latin means clear. It consists of dead keratinocytes. I emphasize that word, dead keratinocytes. Okay? It is in areas that are only thick, and the thick skin layers of the epidermis in your body are on your hands and feet, because those are the areas that are subject to abrasion. Okay? The 5th layer is known as the corneum, which is the horny layer. Okay? There are 20 to 30 rows of flat, dead, keratinized cells. Even though these cells are dead, they protect the deeper cells. They prevent water loss. They protect from abrasion and penetration, and they act as a natural barrier against chemicals, biologicals, and physical assault. So those are the 5 layers of the epidermis. Remember, stratified squamous epithelium is the epidermis. Okay? These cells all die, and they die by a process called apoptosis, which means controlled cell division. That means that layers of the epidermis are sloughed off every single day. When you wash, when you scrub, all of that is dead cells, and dandruff and dander is dead cells. So you lose millions of skin cells every single day. Here are the layers. This is the basal layer. Here is spinosum. Here is granulosum. Here is corneum. This is thin skin. It only has 4 layers. What's missing in thick skin is around here, it would be the stratum lucidum, the clear layer. All right? Right below the epidermis is connective tissue, and that connective tissue is known as the dermis. Okay? The cells inside the dermis are blood cells, macrophages, mast cells, fibroblasts, white blood cells. This is the part of the skin that has blood supply. This is the part of the skin that has nerve supply. This is the part of the skin that has lymphatic vessels for getting rid of debris and putting it into the lymphatic system. It also contains hair, oil glands, and sweat glands. The dermis is divided into 2 layers, papillary and reticular. Here's the epidermis, 4 or 5 layers, and here's the dermis, 2 layers, papillary and reticular. And this is all connective tissue, and you don't have to know the type of connective tissue. Just know the dermis is connective tissue and has blood supply, nerve supply, and lymphatic supply. The papillary area has what we call inside of it dermal papillae, finger-like projections that contain capillaries, that contain nerve endings, that contain touch receptors. And these touch receptors are tactile corpuscles, also known as Meissner corpuscles, the papillary layer of the dermis. In thick skin, the dermal papillae have ridges. And these ridges, together with the epidermis, form friction ridges. Your ability to grab things, your ability to touch things is because of the friction ridges of the dermis and the epidermis. Characteristic findings. Here they are. Okay? We're kind of getting into fingerprints here. All right? The reticular layer. The reticular layer is basically the majority of the dermis. It consists of connective tissue, just like the papillary area. Okay? It really keeps the skin hydrated because it binds water. It also has cleavage lines, otherwise known as tension lines, in the reticular area, caused by collagen fibers that run parallel to the skin surfaces. It's not important to you, but it's important to someone who operates on people, basically surgeons, because we don't want to leave scars. So when we cut something open, we want to make sure that we put it back correctly. So we follow cleavage lines and we cut parallel to these cleavage lines so that healing is easier and less scarring. Okay, and these are the cleavage lines. So, just for instance, if we cut in the abdomen, we wouldn't cut straight down. We would cut on this plane so that you could heal easily. If we ever have appendicitis and you need your appendix taken out, the surgeon won't make a cut like this. He'll make a cut obliquely so that there'll be less of a scar. We also have flexure lines in the reticular area. And they're visible on your hands, on your fingers, on your soles, and on your feet. And they're creases. And here are the creases. These are flexure lines, okay? Flexure lines. You know, there's a whole business in reading these lines, okay? But these are called flexure lines. These are called flexure lines. You can stretch your skin. You know, if you weigh 300 pounds and you decide to lose weight and you lose 100 pounds, you're going to be left with stretch marks. And those stretch marks in medicine are called stria. They're called stria. Okay? So extreme stretching of the skin can cause dermal tears and leave you with stretch marks. And that's chronic. That's a chronic situation. Acutely, short-term trauma to the skin can cause blisters. We've all had blisters. You know, you work too hard with your hands, you have your shoes are too tight, and you get blisters on your hands and your heels. And these are fluid-filled pockets that separate the dermis from the epidermis, blisters. These are stria. Here they are. Okay, well, let me go back. These are called stria. This person was either pregnant and had a very large belly and delivered her baby, or they lost 100 pounds. And this is what you're left with, stretch marks, okay? Stria. Skin color. Skin color is very important, and there are three pigments that contribute to skin color. The major pigment of your skin is due to melanin. And melanin is the only pigment that's actually made in the skin. It's actually made by melanocytes, the cells that make melanin. They take tyrosine, which is acted upon by tyronase, and they make melanin. They make melanin. Okay? Why do you have melanin? You have melanin to prevent you from damaging ultraviolet light. The melanin that's made by the melanocytes is packaged into melanosomes, sent to the majority of the cells of the epidermis, which are keratinocytes, and that melanin shields the DNA of the keratinocyte from damaging ultraviolet light. Obviously, the more sun there is, the more protection there you need, and melanocytes make it. There are two basic forms. You don't have to know either one, reddish yellow and brownish black. But skin color differences is due to melanin. It's due to melanin. There are pockets of local accumulations of melanin on everyone's body, and those are known as either freckles or moles. Okay? Melanin determines the color of your skin. The sun certainly will damage your skin. Okay? The sun will damage your skin. It can depress the immune system and cause alterations in DNA to lead to skin cancer. Ultraviolet light destroys folic acid, which is necessary in DNA synthesis. There are also some drugs which will make you photosensitive to certain things. Certain antibiotics, certain antihistamines can certainly lead to skin rashes. Skin color. Number 2, carotene. Carotene is a yellow to orange pigment that's the most obvious in the creases of your body. And the creases of your body basically are your palms and soles. It accumulates in the epidermis at the stratum corneum and in the hypodermis. It can be converted to vitamin A for vision and epidermal health. So your skin produces vitamin A. The third coloring pigment is hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is a pinkish hue of your fair skin due to lower levels of melanin. This is why Caucasians are not actually white. They are pink. They are pink. Okay? Because your skin is so transparent that we can see the hemoglobin underneath. So the three pigments of your skin are melanin, carotene, and hemoglobin. There are also some abnormal colors, and since I am a physician, I probably will ask you questions on the abnormal colors also. The word cyanosis, cyan means blue. Cyanosis means that you have a blue skin color because your oxygen level attached to your hemoglobin is very low. Pallor. Pallor is a white color or a blanching pale color, and it shows up with low blood pressure and anemia. Erythema is redness, and it shows up with inflammation or fever or allergies. And jaundice. Jaundice is from liver problems, and it gets a yellow cast into your skin. All of these are abnormal colors of your skin. All right. Also, you can have bruises, black and blue marks. Basically, a clot is broken down and the color of the bruises changes. And you can also have bruises around your neck, hyperpigmented areas too. Okay. Let's go to hair. Hair is part of your integumentary system. Basically, it consists of dead keratinized cells and is located in certain areas. You should not have hair on your palms, on your soles, on your lips, on your nipples, and portions of your external genitalia. What's the function of hair? Well, it warns that insects are on your skin. It guards against physical trauma. It protects you from heat loss, and it shields the skin from sunlight. There's not much I want you to know about hair, but what I do want you to know is that the medical term for hair is pili, P-I-L-I. It is produced by hair follicles. Hair contains keratin, a different kind of keratin that's found in skin. In skin, the keratinocytes produce soft keratin. In hair, the keratinocytes produce hard keratin. Okay? You don't have to know the parts of the hair. That's not important. That is not important. I'm not going to ever ask you questions on the parts of the hair. Okay? But what I do want you to know is that the pigments are made by melanocytes, just as the skin. And there's a combination of different melanins, yellow, rust, brown, or black. And this creates all the hair colors. If you have red hair, you have an additional pigment, and that additional pigment is called pheomelanin. As you get older and you lose melanin, you lose melanocytes, your hair will turn white or gray. So to have white or gray hair means you have lost the melanocyte making of the pigment melanin. I am not going to ask you any questions on the structure of a hair follicle. Not important, not important. But there are two or three types of hair. Vellus hair, Vellus, is the pale, fine body hair of children and adult females. Terminal hair is what's found around your scalp and eyebrows. And at puberty, terminal hair also appears in your axillary, pubic areas, and also on the face of males. So know the difference between vellus and terminal hair. The word alopecia means thinning of hair, loss of hair. Okay? Baldness is a genetic abnormality. Alopecia is a different situation. It's thinning of hair, not true baldness. We leave hair and we go to nails. There are certain things about the nail I would like for you to know. Okay? And these things are in big, black, bold letters. The free edge, the nail plate, the root, the nail bed, and the nail matrix. The nail matrix is important because this is where the nail grows from. Some other words I want you to know. Eponychium. Eponychium is the cuticle. It's the part that you get cut off when you get a manicure. The cuticle. I'll show you a picture of it. The hyponychium. Hypo means below. The area under the free edge of the plate that accumulates dirt. And the lunule. The lunule is the thickened nail matrix that appears white. And I will show you what we're talking about. Okay? I want you to know lunule, the white part of the nail matrix. I want you to know the eponychium, the cuticle. I want you to know the free edge of the nail. And I want you to know the hyponychium. Hypo means below the eponychium. This is the area that contains dirt. Okay, and here's the nail bed right here. So that's what I want you to know about the nail. Don't worry about these other diseases. That's not important. Very, very different to have nail diseases. Most nail diseases are caused by fungi. But I do want you to know about sweat glands. Sweat glands are known as sudoriferous glands. And there are two types, eccrine or merocrine and apocrine. And I want you to know the difference between these two types. Merocrine. Merocrine glands are the most numerous. They appear on your palms, soles, and forehead. Their function is thermoregulation. They're regulated by the sympathetic nervous system. They secrete sweat. Sweat is 99% water, salt. vitamin C, antibodies, a protein that kills bacteria called dermacidin, there's an I missing here, and metabolic waste. Okay? Metabolic waste. Remember, the integumentary system is one of the 4 systems that gets rid of waste. The apocrine sweat glands. The apocrine sweat glands are confined to your axillary areas and your anogenital areas. It secretes a different kind of sweat. It secretes a thick, milky, or yellow sweat that contains fat and protein. And when bacteria break down the sweat, you then have body odor. Body odor. Okay? The apocrine sweat glands really don't work until you reach puberty. Until you reach puberty. So the majority of the sweat glands that you have are merocrine sweat glands. And then as you get older, you develop apocrine sweat glands, which give you body odor. We also have other apocrine sweat glands. You have sweat glands in your ears, which produce earwax. Earwax is known as cerumen. So the glands that produce earwax are called ceruminous glands. Okay? A modified apocrine sweat gland in females are the breast or mammary glands. And the mammary glands secrete milk. So the breast and ear glands are apocrine glands that secrete thick secretions. Remember that. Let's leave sweat glands and go to oil glands. Your oil glands in your body are all over your body, and they're basically not in your thick skin of your palms and soles. Okay? They secrete sebum, an oily secretion that kills bacteria. Not only does it kill bacteria, but it softens your hair and your skin. Sebum produced by sebaceous oil glands. This is a nice review. You should look at this review. I think I took a few questions on exam number 2 from this slide. Acne. I think growing up, the majority of us all had some form of acne. Acne is usually an infectious inflammation of sebaceous oil glands, resulting in pimples. It is associated with an infection. You don't have to know this bacteria, but know that acne is an infection of oil glands. And when you have whiteheads, that's blocked oil glands. And if you get the secretion to be oxidized, that whitehead becomes a blackhead. Okay? There are also sebaceous glands in infants on their head because they're eventually going to get hair. But if they overreact, you can get a disease in infants called seborrhea. Seborrhea is known as cradle cap. Okay, and it produces a flaky scalp. Here is a picture of it. This is cradle cap. This is due to overactive sebaceous glands in a newborn infant. So what are the functions of skin? Well, first, it's a barrier, but it also has 6 basic functions: protection, body temperature circulation, cutaneous sensations, metabolic functions, blood reservoir, and excretions of waste. Protection. Protection is in three barriers. There's a chemical barrier, a physical barrier, and a biological barrier. The chemical barrier. The chemical barrier is because skin secretes chemicals. It secretes sweat. We talked about sweat already. And sweat contains antimicrobial proteins. It also secretes sebum. Which kill bacteria. It also secretes a antimicrobial enzyme called defensin, which also kills bacteria. Your skin is pretty acidic. It has a low pH, and that retards bacterial multiplication. You also have melanin produced by melanocytes, which protects your skin from ultraviolet radiation. That's the chemical barrier of your skin. The physical barrier. Well, you kind of know the physical barrier. You know that water can't get into your skin. Why? Because basically your skin has protein over it, keratin over it. And there are minimal things that can get into your skin. Some chemicals can get into your skin. Poison ivy, it can get into your skin. Paint thinner, acetone can get into your skin. Heavy metal can get into your skin. Drugs can get into your skin. Okay? So that's important to understand. The physical barrier. The biological barrier is basically because of macrophages. Macrophages live in your skin. And when there is a foreign antigen that comes into your epidermis and in your dermis, macrophages are activated to kill that foreign invader. So that's important. I'm not going to ask you any questions on organic solvents. The important thing here is that when you're working with organic solvents, wear gloves. That's what's important here. The skin also regulates your body temperature. Every day you lose fluid. And the fluid that you lose every day normally is called insensible perspiration. Okay, this number is not important, but you lose water every day. If your body temperature rises and the vessels of your dermis dilate, you're going to sweat. If you exercise, if your temperature goes up, you're going to sweat. This is known as sensible perspiration, and it is there to cool your body, okay? When the vessels dilate, you lose more fluid. In a cold environment, the vessels constrict. And your skin temperature drops. So you can conserve heat. That's very important to understand. There are also touch receptors and pain receptors on your skin. And these are known as sensory receptors. They respond to stimuli outside the body. Why do you shiver? You shiver because it's cold outside. Okay? You know when it's hot outside. You know that you touch things, and you certainly know that when you put your hand on a stove that's on, you burn yourself. So there are cutaneous sensory receptors on your skin. The skin also has metabolic functions, and the one major metabolic function that I want you to know is that the skin can synthesize vitamin D. Vitamin D. So the skin makes vitamin D. That's very, very important. The keratinocytes can make chemicals that can kill cancers, skin cancers. Okay, so that's important. Your skin is also a blood reservoir. It holds in about 5% of your total blood volume. And when you are exercising, your skin vessels will constrict to shunt bloods to other organs, like the muscles that you're using when you exercise. Excretion. I told you that one of the systems that gets rid of waste is your skin, your integumentary system. Okay? The skin secretes ammonia, uric acid, and uric acid. Okay? It also secretes water and salt. Let's talk about skin cancer and burns. The most common disorders of the skin are infections. Less common but more damaging are skin cancer and burns. Skin cancer. First of all, the majority of tumors on your skin are benign. They're not cancerous and do not spread. And that word of spread is metastasize. What are the risk factors of skin cancer? Overexposure to UV radiation. Don't sit in the sun 8 hours a day for a week. And frequent irritation of your skin. You have a job where your skin is continuously irritated, you are susceptible to skin cancer. So that's important. There are 3 major types of skin cancer. They're in big, bold letters. Know them. There will be 1 or 2 questions on exam number 2 on skin cancer. Basal cell carcinoma, known as BCC, squamous cell carcinoma, known as SCC, and melanoma. Let's take the most common first. The least malignant and the most common is BCC, basal cell carcinoma. Basal cell, it's in the stratum basale. That's where all the cells are born. It is easily cured by surgical removal. The least malignant and the most common. Here is a basal cell carcinoma of the nose. Notice that it's on the nose, more susceptible to UV radiation. Squamous cell carcinoma, the second most common type, but it can leave the skin and go into your tissues, can go into your organs. That word is metastasize, leaves the area and spreads. Squamous cell carcinoma involves the keratinocytes in the stratum spinosum. It is usually on exposed areas of your body to the sun, and those areas are the scalp, the ears, the lower lip, and the hands. It has a good prognosis if treated by surgical removal plus or minus radiation therapy. Here is a squamous cell carcinoma of the scalp. Melanoma. Melanoma is a cancer of the melanocytes. It is the most dangerous type of skin cancer. It is highly metastatic and resistant to chemotherapy. It is treated by a wide surgical incision accompanied by immunotherapy. The key to survival is early detection. I want you to know the ABCD rule of melanoma. The A, asymmetry. The two sides of the pigmented area don't match. B, border irregularity. It exhibits indentations. C, color. It has several colors, basically black, but it can also be brown, tan, red, or blue. And D, diameter, larger than the size of a pencil eraser, larger than 6 millimeters. Here is a typical melanoma. There it is. Blackish blue, has indentations about the size or bigger than a pencil eraser. That's melanoma. It is a dangerous skin cancer. I had a friend of mine die at age 42 of melanoma. Okay? Burns. The skin protects you. Your epidermis and dermis protects you from fluid loss. Burns are tissue damage caused by heat, electricity, radiation, and certain chemicals. The immediate threat is dehydration because you lose fluid. And when you lose water, you lose sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, all the electrolytes. When you get dehydrated and you lose these electrolytes, you go into shock and your kidneys shut down. So that's the immediate threat. So the immediate treatment of a burn is to give them fluids and electrolytes. We evaluate burns by the rule of nines. And this is estimation of fluid loss. I will show you the rule of nines. This doesn't explain it very well, but I try to explain it better for you when we get into the rule of nines. Burns are classified by severity. First degree. First degree is only the epidermis is damaged. This is a sunburn. Localized redness, localized edema or swelling, and pain. Second degree. Second degree means that the epidermis and the upper dermis are damaged. The hallmark of a second degree burn is blistering. Blistering. Okay? First and second degree burns are known as partial thickness burns because they only involve the epidermis and upper dermis. So first degree is only the epidermis. Second degree is the epidermis and the upper dermis, and the hallmark is blisters. Third degree is what we call a full thickness burn. The entire thickness of the skin is involved. The epidermis is burned, the hypodermis is burned, and the dermis is burned. Okay? All three layers of the skin are burned. The skin can either be white, cherry red, or black. The nerves are burned. The vasculature is burned. There is no swelling. There is no pain. And skin grafting is necessary because there will be a scar with a third-degree burn. So this is first degree. Here it is, first degree. Burns of the epidermis only. Here is second degree, classic blisters. You know that the epidermis and the upper dermis are burned. And here is third degree. Third degree. All three areas, the epidermis, the hypodermis, and the dermis are burned. Painful, painful, not painful. Burns are considered critical if greater than 25% of the body has second-degree burns, or greater than 10% have third-degree burns, or areas of the face, the hands, and the feet have third-degree burns. Why is the face so important? Now is the time to tell me. If you have burns of the face, what are you worried about? Anybody?
The structures underneath the skin on your face, like your eyesight, your nose, your sinuses.
True, true. You certainly are worried about that. But what's the most worrisome thing about burns of the face? Let me give you a scenario. You're caught into a house fire. As you try to get out, the fire hits your face, and then you walk out the door. What are you worried about? What's below your face? Anybody? What if I throw in the word smoke? Now tell me what's wrong with your face.
Lack of oxygen?
Lack of oxygen and airway problems. If you inhale fire or smoke, you're going to have an airway problem. So the airway is important when you have burns of the face. That's very, very important. Okay? How do we treat burns? The first thing we do is give them back their fluid that they lost. We get rid of the burned skin. That's called debridement. We do not give them antibiotics. This is wrong. We don't do that. We temporarily cover their burns so they won't lose more fluids, and eventually we give them skin grafts. Now, I want to show you the rule of nines. And the reason I'm showing you the rule of nines is because this is how doctors determine the extent of burns. Okay? So let's look at the head and neck. The front is 4.5%. The back is 4.5%. The total is 9%. So if you have your head and neck burn, that's 9%. The front of your anterior trunk is 18%. The back of your trunk is 18%. So 18 and 18 is 36%. All right? The front of your arms is 4%. The front of your arms is 4.5%. The entire arm are 9% each. So if both arms are burned, front and back, it's a total of 18%. Okay, hear it? Whoop, sorry. A total of 18%. So now we have head and neck, total 9%, anterior and posterior upper limbs, total, front and back, 18%, anterior and posterior trunk, total, 36%, and the anterior and posterior limbs, 9% on either side, so 18% each for a total of 36%, which gives us 99%, and 1% is your perineum, which gives you a total of 100%. Okay? Know the rule of nines. You're going to see it on exam number 2. The rule of nines. All right? Any questions on that? Let me stop recording.